Our father was more of a father to you than yours ever was.
He was.
And you betrayed him. Betrayed his memory.
I did.
You never lost him. He's a part of you. Just like he's a part of me.
Hello Throners, and welcome to Game of Thrones Rewind. In this new video series, we will be going back in time to deconstruct some of the best scenes that Game of Thrones has to offer, analyzing the dialogue between our favorite characters to uncover clues and foreshadowing to help us figure out how the series will end. Let's start with the scene from the Season 7 finale, The Dragon and the Wolf, the conversation between Jon Snow and Theon Greyjoy. Game of Thrones is still being impacted years later by Sean Bean's Ned Stark, the great Northern Lord of Winterfell. Despite his failings playing the Game of Thrones, he remains one of the most important players in the great game despite being dead on the show. This is a hard truth that we have to accept, that Ned Stark won't be coming back to save the day, but that doesn't mean he won't have an influence on the endgame. Game of Thrones loves to explore these hard truths and teaches us lessons through tragedy and duality, showing us the positive and negative, the wolf and the dragon, and the ice and the fire. And in this scene, wow, I was absolutely blown away by the level of emotion that you can experience in just under 5 minutes. We experience grief, remorse, anger, frustration, compassion, forgiveness, and most of all, hope.
You don't need to choose. You're a Greyjoy. And you're a Stark.
But I am a bit unhappy that this scene has not been given the attention that it deserves. It was so powerful emotionally without spilling blood. This was a great emotional scene between two old friends, and Jon was able to compromise, seeing that finding forgiveness is better than holding on to hate. I mean, 7 seasons ago, we would have thought this might be impossible, and that Jon may never move on from his past. But guess what? Jon Snow never sounded more like a king and a leader as he did in Season 7 and in this scene. I think that most of us want to focus on the fact that Theon needed to hear these words, that he needed to begin anew towards his redemption, to be much stronger than he was. What is dead may never die, but rises harder and stronger. And in this case, Theon will have to not let Ned's memory die and let Jon's lesson inspire him into action to be stronger than he was. When I do my research for these videos and I'm writing and I go back and watch these scenes, I learn something new. I feel something new, and I have my mind blown. Like the fact that Jon is closest to Ned than any other of the Stark children. Ned isn't even his father. But in my heart, I feel how much love Ned truly had for Jon and Lyanna, to take that big risk, to sacrifice so much to protect a child, someone who is completely innocent. This is another hard truth that we have to accept despite all of the positive influences and lessons we learn from these great characters. They ultimately left the world in worse condition than before they left it. But perhaps this new generation of people can change that and break the wheel. I mean, take Jon for example. Jon acknowledges that Theon is a Stark, thereby winning his loyalty and gratitude forever. Robb Stark failed to do that, saying that the Starks were not Theon's house. Jon even had the pragmatism to forgive the Umbers and the Karstarks for their treason, thereby solidifying the Northern Allegiance, bringing all of the major houses together to fight to survive the Long Night. Robb followed the punishment of treason to the letter, thereby alienating the Karstarks and losing an important ally. Now, I'm not saying that Robb was a bad king, it's just that Jon has one major thing that Robb didn't: real integrity. Robb was a good man, don't get me wrong, but Jon puts the people ahead of himself regardless of what they've done. That's the mark of a true king, and that's why I believe he's a great match for Daenerys Targaryen. But Jon also understands conflict very well because of his life as Ned Stark's bastard. This scene has some absolutely amazing foreshadowing because later on in the episode we find out that Jon is the true-born heir to the Iron Throne, the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. And I expect that he will be in a similar situation to where Theon was in this scene, where he feels betrayed and like he feels he has to choose, Stark or Targaryen, the wolf or the dragon. This is why George is such an amazing author. He's amazing at telling the conflict of the human heart with itself within the Song of Ice and Fire. And imagine for just a second that you are Jon Snow and you're told that both of your parents are dead and the person that you've admired most in your whole life lied to you. But we have to consider the fact that Ned Stark was so honest and well respected even by his enemies that he gives way to the word of his son from beyond the grave, or at least the person everyone currently believes is his son. This is why this scene is so amazing. Jon shares his wisdom with Theon, which will reflect back on his own journey, and he will need to understand or at least make a hard choice. And if Jon was a different man than he is, it might make sense for him to stay quiet about his lineage. He'd almost certainly rather be Ned Stark's son than a secret love child of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. But we have to remember, he wants to be with Dany, and he wants to keep Westeros safe from the Long Night. It's so crazy how this can relate back and connect to the scene between Jon and Maester Aemon. Duty is the death of love, and love is the death of duty. This was Ned Stark to a T. He did his duty, and he brought Lyanna's promise with him to the grave. And to me, Ned is the personification of the father in the faith of the Seven, a symbol of justice in the faith. And throughout his storyline, Ned is known as honorable to a fault. In fact, one of his earliest lines in the show is, "He who passes the sentence should swing the sword." And it foreshadows his strict commitment to doing what is right. This is why it's so important for Jon to tell the truth, and this is why I admire Jon so much. He has that straight up honesty, and he has that strong reason behind his decisions. He understands that the wheel has to be broken. The wars, all of this lying, it needs to stop, and for someone to truly understand this in this story is very important. He's such a unique and special character for this reason. The prince that was promised, Azor Ahai, perhaps even Lightbringer in the flesh, the sword in the darkness that guards the realms of men, Stark and Targaryen. And I know some of you may be saying, wait Kyle, yeah, he might be all of these things in the end, but you just said he is so much like Ned Stark, and look what happened to him. Well, that doesn't mean that Jon can't learn from his mistakes and make the right decisions going forward. It all relates back to what Maester Aemon said. Duty is the death of love, love is the death of duty. How can you make such an impossible decision, choosing love or your duty? Perhaps in this case for Jon and Theon, it's the same thing, and you don't have to choose. This is a new video series that I will be doing weekly on every Wednesday, and all of you can help me decide which scene I will cover in my next Game of Thrones Rewind episode. So make sure you leave your suggestions in the comment section for what scene you would like me to break down next. And to keep this discussion going, I would love for all of you to answer these questions. Will Jon have to sacrifice love for his duty, becoming Azor Ahai to kill Daenerys? Will he sacrifice his own life, or will he survive, and will Theon finally rise to his potential? Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you like this video. I have lots of great videos coming up in the future, including a collaboration with In Deep Geek on his channel tomorrow night, Thursday, February 1st at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be discussing Tyrion Lannister on a live stream, so that's going to be really fun. And also, I got another episode of Psychology of Thrones on the way, and I will be breaking down the psychology of Cersei Lannister, the Mad Queen. This video was sponsored by my amazing patrons on Patreon. Thank you to the 38 lovely new members that we added to the Hype and Love family this month. Thank you so much for watching, and Hype and Love.
Fuck the king.
How much for your little fam?
Voices,